Welcome to the Diabetes Podcast, where real stories meet real science, helping you take charge, not just take medicine. Today we're diving into a piece we haven't fully unpacked yet, mindset. We've covered nutrition, movement, and even touched on sleep, but mindset can be the multiplier for all of it. Our guest is uniquely positioned to talk about both the tools and the thinking behind sustainable change. Dr. Pavi Kundhal is a general surgeon, diplomat of the American Board of Obesity Medicine, and author of Shift Your Mind to Shift Your Weight. In this conversation, we explore how surgery and medications like GLP-1s can be powerful tools, yet still just tools, and why the patients who do the best are the ones who build habits, reshape their environments, and reframe their thinking. We also get into weight gain enablers in our modern world, non-scale victories, plateaus, trust in healthcare, and simple, sustainable steps to get unstuck. Whether you're considering bariatric surgery, trying medications, or focusing on lifestyle, this episode will give you a clear plan and a more resilient mindset. Let's go. Hello and welcome to the Diabetes Podcast. I'm Richie.
And I'm Amber.
And Amber, today we're in for a real treat. In previous episodes, we've talked about behaviors our listeners can start integrating into their daily routines to start taking control of type 2 and prediabetes. We've talked in depth about nutrition. We've talked about movement. We talked a little bit about sleep, but today we have really yet to kind of dive into mindset. Mm-hmm. And today on the podcast, we're talking to an expert in obesity medicine and the mindset surrounding it. In addition to being a general surgeon and a diplomat of the American Board of Obesity Medicine, Dr. Pavi Kundhal is the author of Shift Your Mind to Shift Your Weight. Dr. Kundhal, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Richie and Amber, for having me today. It's a real pleasure.
Awesome. So I know that you're a bariatric surgeon, and I had heard more about the Roux-en-Y being kind of out and the gastric sleeve being the procedure of the day that had better outcomes. And here you are written this guideline, if you will, for your patients about mindfulness, meditation, self-sabotaging thoughts. That's not really what I would expect, and probably other people would expect from a bariatric surgeon. So what led you there? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I've always had an interest in mindset and psychology, even when I was, a student. And I remember when I was trying to choose the different specialties I was interested in. Obviously, I liked surgery. I liked the technical aspect. I liked that you could see immediate results from what you do. But I also was thinking about psychiatry too. So it was something but ultimately I decided to become a surgeon. I'm very happy with my choice. And, part of the reason why I have this dedicated a large part of my career to helping people achieve health through weight loss is that it's multidisciplinary. It's not just, surgery. It's not just medications. There's also a large psychological component. So you have to actually treat the person, the unique individual as a whole. And initially, when I started my practice and I was doing, high volume surgeries, the real focus is like becoming a master of your technical art, like trying to, what stapler to use, how tight to make the sleeve, or those sorts of things. But then as you see patients as they go through the process, as years pass, I started seeing that some patients maybe did not have the sustained success they were looking at, and then some patients did. So I started when I had my follow-up appointments, I talked to people. I found that patients who had, I would say the most sustained weight loss were the ones who actually did the deep work and changed their mindset. They looked at the surgery as a tool, not as a magic bullet, something to help you, lose weight. And it's highly effective and very, patients have done very well with them. But there are a subset of patients who don't do as well. But I found that the patients who actually look at this as a tool and look at and realize they still have to make lifestyle changes in conjunction with the surgery, those are the ones I found in my practice did the best. And, when I started talking to those people and trying to understand, I realized a lot of it was habits that they had developed. And often your habits are a reflection of your thinking and your mindset. So that's kind of how I sort of started realizing the importance of that.
Awesome. So it sounds like they came to you already with a different mindset, because habits are not like you wake up and you have a new habit. These are like, I always liken habits to tire tread on a really worn dirt road. Like if you got these big tractor tires, wearing them out, that it takes a lot to get out of that tread if you're in it. So the people that do best, if I heard you right, are the ones that pretty much already have this idea that this surgery is going to give me a major leg up, but I understand that it's about the way I think about the food that I'm putting in my mouth, my movement, my mindset around all of the external factors that are going to come up, the party at work where there's cake, having things that could help you say no to that. Awesome. So when people first come to you, are you trying to use a GLP-1 and other things first before surgery? Like, what does that look like for someone who comes to you? And I'm sorry for like the multi-pronged question, but I want you to just kind of run with this. And so do they come to you and they try these things and then it's surgery after a certain point? What is that like? What are they expecting? Do you generally see? What do they think this will do for them?
For sure. So like when we evaluate a patient, you have to look at every patient individually. There are obviously some criteria based on their body mass index and pre-existing health conditions and so on and so forth. But when I see a patient, I'm trying to determine whether or not surgery is a good option for them. Obviously, they have to meet a certain weight threshold in order
Can you
for the
quickly
surgery
tell us what that is, BMI wise, weight, those things?
Yeah, I think at a minimum, I say the BMI would be 30 with obesity related conditions, or 35. It's come down with time. That being said, I think now we're seeing with the GLP-1 medications, I think that's going to change too. I think that patients who are, historically been like the lower BMIs, they may actually benefit from pharmacotherapy rather than jumping into surgery now that we have these options. So I think the key thing is you got to look at everyone as an individual. I look at their history. What's their weight? Like, have they been weight cycling, gaining, losing weight? A lot of patients have already been on GLP-1 medications, have tried different ones, have not had the success they were looking for, or could not tolerate them due to side effects. So there are lots of different considerations. So it's not like sometimes say like to a hammer, everything's a nail. That's not how we look at it. It's sort of like we try to evaluate everyone individually. And I'd say the vast majority of patients we turn down. It has to be very specific patients who I think will benefit from it.
Okay. So what is, just fleshing that out a little bit more, what does that look like? Somebody who's been obese for the majority of their life, like versus somebody who has gained weight after a certain event? What things are you like, yeah, this is definitely a good candidate for surgery?
So I think people who've tried self-directed diet and exercise and haven't had success, people who have tried medications and haven't had success. Some people have struggled with weight their entire life, and they, despite doing things that are you'd expect them to lose weight, they haven't. So I think seeing a history of trying to do things, not just jumping to surgery, because like I said, in my mind, surgery is a tool. So I need to see some previous track record of trying to do things, because you still need to do those things even after surgery. So if you haven't ever done them or demonstrated it, sometimes those are patients who don't do as well after surgery. So you want to see some track record of sticking to something, showing some commitment, because as I said before, it's not a magic bullet. It's not, you just do the surgery and it's done. There is work involved in it. It's not an easy way out. There's still a lot of, you have to reteach yourself how to eat. There's a graduated diet that you go on for several weeks after the surgery. And also, sometimes there could be drastic change in your weight quickly, and and for some patients that can be psychologically challenging, because
I bet.
Often how the world perceives you is how they see you. And if, something changes very quickly, sometimes the people close to you, their relationship with how they interact with you will change. So you need to have all of those things assessed to kind of decide if someone's ready for surgery. And obviously things like if they're active, abusing substances, addictions, those sorts of things, we exclude patients for all of those reasons too. So there are lots of reasons, and some patients have like technical reasons. They've had significant abdominal surgery, or they've had, previous bariatric surgeries that preclude other options, or they have really bad heartburn. They may not be a good candidate for a gastric sleeve. So those are like, they're medical reasons too why we don't do offer surgeries to people also.
Yeah, all that makes sense. And I'm thinking of someone that I know that had surgery and who's passed along now. She was an alcoholic and had the gastric bypass Roux-en-Y surgery, which basically afterwards all of her nutrition came from alcohol, which was already a problem prior to. So it just kind of exacerbated a problem that was already there. So that you bring up such a great, like so many things that you would consider that people coming to you, it's not even on their radar as something that would exclude them or would make it more challenging.
Yeah,
Wow.
so there's a whole kind of process you go through. Like obviously we do consultations, physical exam, you meet with the dietitian, there's psychological assessments, we have questionnaires. So there's a whole protocol that patients go through to determine if they're a suitable candidate to make sure it's the right thing for them. And
Mhm.
sometimes it might not be the right thing at this moment in time, but it may be the right thing a few years down the line or at a different point.
That's great. I love that is done because I don't think every single surgery center takes that approach. And I think that it's really a necessary approach to take. What what is your opinion about surgery centers that don't have, I mean, most do, I would believe, but not all. Because I know plenty of people who've had bariatric surgery without ever seeing a dietitian, without ever seeing a psychologist or psychiatrist. What are your feelings about that?
I
What are
mean,
your
again,
thoughts about that?
yeah,
Thoughts
I
and
think it's a
feelings.
yeah, I think it's important to like look at it. You have to look at patients as individuals, and I think you have to do a holistic assessment. And I think it's important to look at everything. Like it's not just thinking about it from a technical standpoint. Can I do the surgery safely, which is hugely important. But you also have to look at all aspects of their life and see if this makes sense for them. At least to me, I think that's very important.
I do too. Yeah. So, what do you wish people truly understood about why weight loss feels so hard? And diabetes management, we see the same thing. And I'm sure you see a lot of your weight loss patients who have diabetes. Not that they're one and the same, but obesity does lead to diabetes risk.
Yeah, so I always say like a lot of people struggle with a lot of things in their lives. So some people struggle with, drugs, or some people struggle with gambling, or various other things. And obviously there are people who struggle with food. Now, the thing that makes food very challenging is you can't go cold turkey on food. You have to eat it,
Yeah.
right? You have
Right.
to
Well,
eat to
you
survive.
can. It's generally not recommended.
Yeah, it's not recommended. It won't work
The
out well in
outcomes
the
are
end.
terrible.
And there are
Yeah,
a
so you,
lot of physiological mechanisms in your body that are going to fight you tooth and nail against
That's
doing that.
right. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to eat. We know we have
Mm-hmm.
to eat. So if you find that you may be one of those people who, there are people who sometimes don't feel full. They do exist. They just don't have that feeling of satiety. They never felt it. And I've seen that with patients who, after I do surgery, they're like, "This is the first time I've ever actually felt full. I've never known what that felt like."
Yeah.
So that's what makes it, I think that's one aspect that makes it very challenging is that it's not like you can just quit smoking and say, I'm not going to smoke again, and you can live your life fully. Eating is, that's one challenge. And another aspect is the way our society has become structured is that depending if you live in an urban center, for example, having access to real food is
Mm-hmm.
challenging. You think it wouldn't be, but it is. You're more likely to get processed food, calorie dense food, non-filling food, which is probably cheaper than buying actual healthy food. So I think that's another challenge that makes weight challenging for people is that our societies have changed. Um, we have a lot of weight enablers in our. You'll sometimes see that from people who lived in more rural areas. Their life requires them to be very active. They're very fit naturally, just doing their daily lives. They move to the city, it can change very quickly
Right.
because
Yeah.
everything now is about weight enablers. You don't walk as much. You use food delivery apps now that can deliver anything to you 24/7. You don't even have to burn the calories going to the fast food joint. You don't have to do that anymore. Anything can be brought to you at any time. So I think that that's also made it sometimes, things that may have prevented you from eating were inconvenience. Okay, well, it's too cold, it's snowing outside. I don't want to go to I don't want to go to the restaurant. I just whatever. But now you can have anything you want at any time, and I think those things are contributing too. Um, and and I think also it's just the way, we're doing a lot more sedentary things. We're doom scrolling on our phones for hours at a time. I remember when I was a kid, if you watched the show, let's say Growing Pains or something, you'd watch one episode every week.
Mhm.
Now you're on the couch, within 10 seconds, they got the next episode. The night before you know it, you sat there for 4 hours and you start eating mindlessly because you're so distracted. We're constantly distracted now that when we're eating mindlessly. So I think all of these things have sort of created, their weight gain enablers. And I think they've made it more challenging for people, because you have to be very intentional now in your life to actually not, to maintain weight or to try to lose weight, because we're constantly being distracted. We don't even know what we're doing anymore.
That's so true. So, so true. And the amount, I think we would all just sit aghast if we really understood the amount of research and time and money that has gone into keeping us engaged and looking at our screen and going into that next episode. It's just
Oh, they know
it
what they're
really is
doing.
quite
Yeah,
unfair.
yeah. I think they've invested billions of dollars to
Hmm.
they know exactly. I guess their algorithms know what to do to keep you. I mean, that's their metric. They want to keep you on
Yeah.
their devices or whatever it is. And I
Yeah.
think
Not to.
that's. Sorry, go ahead, please.
Sorry, I was just not to throw Facebook under the bus, but I did read that at the beginning of their algorithm, anything that was inciting anger or they noticed that people would engage more, so they gave 5 times more weight to those anger inducing posts than anything else to try to get more engagement. It's just,
That's sad. Yeah,
it is
yeah,
very sad, and I
yeah,
know we've all felt it.
for sure. Yeah.
Oof. Oof. Okay, so many people say, I know what to do, just can't do it. What's really happening there, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything. Sometimes the hardest step is starting.
Mhm.
And I think there are lots of reasons why people don't get started. I think the first thing is fear of failure. They've tried a lot of different things and they haven't had the success.
Great points.
And so, I've tried going to the gym, or I've tried, having a low carb, high protein diet, or, I've tried whatever it may be that they're doing. And, I had some success. Stress came up in life. I had issue with my kids or something. I fell off and then I gained it back. And it can be very devastating. And when you've done it the third, fourth, the fifth time, you know, and then now, and then, your family members are saying, "Oh, why are you even bothering? It's just going to be like last
Mm,
year. Just do
mm,
whatever, why are you doing this?" So I think the fear of failure. I think sometimes people get too focused on the end result. So they might say, "Oh, I have to lose 80 pounds. I can't, there's no way. I've never even lost 20 pounds. How am I going to do this?" So the goal seems so unattainable that in their mind, they've convinced themselves it's not even worth trying. And I think that that's one reason too. And I think also, um, and then I think that's very important to address, because what I tell my patients, or anyway, even my kids, when I give them advice on life and everything, is that, and you see it a lot in sports. They talk about a lot in sports, is you need to focus on the process, right? Don't focus on what the goal is. Just do what you're supposed to do. So if you do what you're supposed to do every day, the results will follow. So when you have to do something really big, break it down into little pieces. Don't think about, oh, I got to, like, put one step in front of the next. So if you need to lose, like, let's say you need to lose 80 pounds and you decide that, um, I'm going to do it through walking every day. I'm going to do it through cutting out the cream from my coffee. You pick small little things and then you kind of build on them and compound them. And over time, you'll see the results. So I think there are strategies to address that, but I think fear of failure, um, the goal seems unattainable. And I also think people don't know what to do.
mhm.
Education, they're not actually sure, how do I go about doing this? This is something I know I want to do. It's important for me and my family, but I actually don't know how to approach it. So I think
Yeah.
those are three reasons why people don't start. Sometimes I just think they simply don't know what to do. So that's a
Yeah.
factor also.
I think the how approach is so important. And I often will say that if you need to go from New York to California, there's a couple of ways to get there. You could certainly walk, but that's going to
Yeah.
take a really long time and hurt your feet, and you're going to get snowed on, rained on. All of the elements and are going to be against you, and you could maybe die because you need shelter at night. Like, what is your plan for hotels? And versus taking a private jet, boom, you're there.
Yeah.
Like, there's different ways, and you can make it harder on yourself or easier. So when in that mindset of making it easier on yourself, what are some quick strategies in each area? Mindset, movement, nutrition. Like, what are some things that if you had to give a quick pep talk to someone, you would say with that?
So I think an important thing I tell people is sometimes the smallest changes will lead to the biggest results. So you want to first, when you're trying to introduce change into your life in any aspect of your life, um, you don't want to, the things that give the most results are things that are not extreme. So
Mm-hmm.
people doing 600 calorie diets a day are not going, it's not going to work. Like you might be
No.
able to do it for a month, maybe, or 2 months, and you'll see a lot of weight loss potentially, but then it's going to rebound hard. It's not
Mm-hmm.
sustainable. So what I try to tell patients are, if you want to have small, quick victories, so you want to pick small, simple things. And everyone's starting from a different, like someone needing to lose 30 pounds is different than someone needing to lose 150 pounds. So you obviously have to tailor what you're going to do to the individual because we're all different.
Yes.
But if, so I would say, for example, let's say that, a lot of times you're afraid to do things because you think people are going to judge you or say, oh, a lot of times people don't go to the gym because they think people are going to look at them and judge them.
That's a big one. Yeah.
When in reality, people are probably impressed that you're trying to improve yourself. The vast majority
Mm-hmm.
of people, right? There are always a few odd people here or there, but most people see someone doing something, they're going to be supportive and they're going to want to help. So the first thing is people actually do want to help. So your family doctor or primary
Yeah.
caregiver, they're going to want to help. So you can start there and ask for some advice. Um, we all know people are struggling with weight. Sometimes getting a weight loss buddy can be someone that you guys can decide that we're going to do this together. We can support each other. It's someone that you can lean on.
Mm-hmm.
So those are ways to get the support and someone to kind of get you going. But I think you start small. So let's say you're a sedentary person, you haven't been walking. Just say, you know what? For the next week or two, every day I'm going to walk 5 to 10 minutes. You just do that. And that's how you judge your victory. That's your process. Every day I'm going to walk. You don't focus on the scale. You just say, okay, you do that for enough days, that becomes your routine. And then you can say, I'm going to, instead of having 2 or 3 creams in my coffee, I'm only going to have one. Right. And so you start,
Mm-hmm.
and those small things actually are huge. Those 20 or
They
30
really are.
calories,
Mm-hmm.
you have 2 coffees a day. Now you're talking 60 calories times it by 30 days is half a pound. Over a year, you got 6 pounds or just from small changes, and those results will show over time. And then so introducing those increased movements in your life, those small changes, they will actually show, they will pay the dividends in the long run versus, going on a treadmill for an hour, running 6, 7 kilometers an hour, and then, crashing out and not doing it again. You're way better off
Mm-hmm.
just doing something sustainable every day. That's where the results will come from.
I love that because we really talk about trying to collect wins, and when it comes to nutrition, we talk about what you can add in by the way of fruits and vegetables and other things that would help you feel fuller and better nourished. But it's the same thing with wins. It's just how do you set it up so that you win? And to add on to what you said about a fitness buddy or an exercise buddy is make sure you choose somebody that's at a level above where you are, because the worst thing you can do is get your accountability partner and you're both really struggling and you're not able to motivate the other and for that accountability and showing up. So try to pick somebody that's like right above you. I loved all that. So for
And,
people,
and
yeah.
I think that's like, and I really think that's important too, because,
Mhm.
just stressing that a lot of people will quit if they don't see the evidence on the scale.
My gosh, yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
So they define success by the scale. And the reality is for a lot of people, the scale can lag.
Absolutely.
It may not show up right away. People like, and I see that sometimes with patients, the first month they have, they get that sort of rapid weight loss when they do something new, and then they hit a plateau. And then they start going through that, oh, it's going to be like every other time. I just give up. But what they don't realize is your body's catching up to your new weight, your metabolism's adjusting. So if you change your mindset and say, I judge success by the process, I judge success by doing what I'm supposed to do, versus I judge success by the number and the skill, in my opinion, you're much more likely to keep going. And and that's what we call non-skill victories. Doing the things, the things that you're supposed to, the habits that you develop. If you keep doing those things long enough, the skill will reflect that.
Yes.
But it's just having the resilience um, to get past those plateaus. These plateaus are normal, right? They're going to be
Hmm.
plateaus in weight loss. It's not a straight line. Even after surgery, you'll see it. Patients will have this initial first 2 or 3 months will have a big drop, then they plateau for months, and then they start, we'll get that. Oh, you didn't do the surgery properly, it's not working, or this, that. And then you just have to reassure them this is normal. Your set points resetting, you're kind of on a plateau.
Hmm.
Eventually you're gonna get the next drop. You just have to, but it's understanding that and putting the systems in place in your life and developing the mindset to know that I just have to keep doing the right things. The results will show up eventually.
Absolutely. I love that word resilience. I think that's such a powerful and important state of state of mind and thing to embody when it comes to improvement and getting to where you would really appreciate being better than where you are. But then again, you're always where you are. So
Yeah, for
tell
sure.
me, for people with diabetes specifically, and if you can't tease out because you see both, that's okay. But people who say, I hate meds, I hate shots, nothing works, how much of that frustration do you believe is rooted in mental fatigue versus actual physical fatigue?
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's probably a bit of both. So I
Hmm.
think that you sometimes see that with patients with the GLP ones. They take the injections, and sometimes that is the reason in and of itself they don't want to continue on. They don't like the injections or they don't like taking tablets, and that can be challenging. And also some patients, they at a certain dose they cap out and then you have to increase it. You have to escalate the dose to kind of see the results. So I think with any medication, over time, there is a potential for tolerance or the need for dose escalation. But I
Hmm.
also think it's real that patients get fatigued if they're on multiple medications. It can be, um, sometimes they just don't want to take them anymore. You see that with patients on blood pressure medications. Like it's one of those things, it's like blood pressure is, you may not feel anything,
Yeah.
right? But it's something, you take it to prevent problems down the line. You don't actually feel anything when you have high blood pressure. Super high, you'll feel something. But let's say it's a little bit elevated, but over time it's damaging vessels or other organs. And they don't want to take the medication, but because they can't actually see immediately what it's doing for them. But down the road, it's going to do a lot for them. So those are challenges in all aspects of medicine is compliance.
I've heard that
Yeah.
from so many physicians about blood pressure medicines more than any other meds, but others as well. And that's a big thing in diabetes too. Like I feel fine. Why do I have to take this stuff? And what you bring up is crucial. And I think if you don't feel any different, it speaks a lot to the trust you have to have with your healthcare provider that they're asking you to take this in their best interest. And I think trust just across the board can be lacking.
Yeah, I mean, we always say that the foundation of the doctor-patient relationship is trust.
Yeah.
If the trust is lost, you can't actually have that relationship anymore, because patients trust us to think about them 5, 10, 20, or what's in their best interest. So yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think those are societal challenges too. I think there has been a bit
Hmm.
of breakdown in trust in the medical field in general. So I think, that's something we're all constantly working every day to gain the trust of our patients.
Yeah. What do you believe has um, hurt or impacted that trust relationship? Because I don't think this is, always definitely in the 50s, that wasn't the case. The doctor-patient bond, patients would trust them. Anything they said, jump off a bridge, they would pretty much do it. What do you think has impacted that? And how do you think we come back to trust?
Yeah, so I think conflicts of interest are
Right.
probably
Mm-hmm.
something that people think of. You know, I guess especially with big pharma, are they either subconsciously influencing physicians, or are they incentivizing physicians, to use certain instruments or use certain drugs? Or so I think that that's fair and legitimate question that anyone should ask. You know, because they often say, like, if you see the outcome, look at the incentive, right? So
Mm-hmm.
are people being, are providers being influenced? And I think there's a lot of awareness in the medical profession now that has happened historically and needs to be dealt with. So I think, again, I can't speak about the American context, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that's our societies are very similar. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's very similar across the board that way. So I think that's one thing. I think the other thing is, the pros and cons of internet and social media. One of the, I guess, the pros are it's transparency. I think things were probably not as widely communicated when there were things in the past that happened, but now if something happens, it's, even though it might be a very rare occurrence, it can be presented as something that happens all the time. So I think
Mm-hmm.
so a one in a million event may seem like it's happening every other time because it's being blasted on social media or the news or internet. So I think that so I think the technologies that we're being exposed to are probably also, um, and I think also, there are pros and cons. I think that, patients should be able to advocate their opinions and their views and what their experience are, because those are real and that's their
Yeah.
experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I think all of these things probably, but in the end, I think transparency builds a stronger system. So, as long as it holds everyone accountable, and I think that's important.
I agree. And I blame cigarettes for the beginning of the lack of trust. No, I know that at one point the American Medical Association recommended smoking. So it's just interesting, the
Yeah, it's wild.
evolution. It is
Yeah.
so wild. Um, but I think things, at least in the United States, things like the Sunshine Act came about because it was I think it was probably about 20 years ago. The pharmaceutical representative was just anybody and everybody, all takers of volume instead of quality. And there were no limits on spending, and it got out of control. And thankfully, things have reeled back in over the past like 10, 12 plus years. But I think it takes a while to get the trust back from what occurred in the past. And I know with pharmaceuticals that if you leave a study on the GLP-1s and cardiovascular protection in those with existing heart disease, let's say, you're going to mark that you left the doctor something costing $5. And if three different pharmaceutical reps, that's $15 a day times 52 weeks a year. Maybe they only work 48, but that does add up. And you can always go, Google the Sunshine Act, and you can see what payments your physician gets. And I think that people who are concerned about that can have a conversation with their physician about their concerns, and hopefully the physician will be open to that conversation, because I think oftentimes they'll stop having lunches with pharmaceutical representatives because patients have brought it up and they don't want to give some sort of perception that they're being influenced. And having talked with thousands of doctors, I don't believe that. I believe there is some unconscious bias to some degree, but I think for the most part, all the internal medicine physicians, endocrinologists, general practitioners, if you ask them, are you prescribing this because you got a cookie or this, they'll tell you absolutely not. That's absurd. But if it is in front of their face more, they're more aware of it. They're probably more likely to prescribe. So those are definitely all considerations. But do I think it's getting blown out of proportion by some wellness social media people that stand to benefit from you buying their supplement instead of getting the med from your doctor? Yes, of course.
Yeah,
So much
it
to
goes
talk
both
about.
ways. Yeah, there are people who
Yeah,
gain from engendering distrust. So it kind
right.
of like, yeah, there's so many agendas, sometimes at play. But
Yeah,
yeah, I
so
agree with you though.
much.
Like, I just think of my colleagues, and I'd say 99.9% are trying their best and trying to do the right thing by
Absolutely.
their patient. And you're right, like getting a cold coffee or a donut is not really, but yeah, for sure. But you have to be aware of unconscious bias. Sometimes, I mean, that's
Hmm.
why they put billboards, it's just name recognition. Sometimes you drive by and
Hmm.
you have to think of a drug and you just remember the brochure that was on your desk because that's the one you last saw and decide to
Yeah.
prescribe that. Yeah.
And let's talk about you here today because you're not here to promote a book or do anything for your own gain. When we talked, your major goal was to just get the message out to people about their mindset and the obesogenic, diabetogenic environment that we have. What you called it was uh, food. What did you say? Sorry, I'm forgetting
Like
already.
weight gain enablers. Is
Weight
that?
gain enablers. That's a
Yeah.
new term for me, believe it or not. Weight gain enablers. Yeah. So just understanding that all of this is there and this is your time that you're spending to get this message out. And I think that's an important thing for people to understand if they don't already about their physicians is they really do want the best for their patients. They care. That's why people went into the field of medicine was because they care. Of course, there's always a bad apple in every barrel, but I just don't see, even if you started out that way, I think you cannot be in this profession without being a compassionate individual because you see and hear so many stories and you really see humanity through all aspects of life. And
Yeah, it's too
yeah,
hard of a thing to do if you
right.
genuinely don't care about people. Because if you have other motivations, there are a lot of other things you could do that probably would reward you if that's what you're after. So I think, for me, like why do I do this? Ultimately, when you step back and think about it, when all's said and done, really what you take with you, you take what, you take your deeds with you, you take how you helped people, that's what people ultimately are. Uh, when you think of someone in your life that may have moved on, you think about how they helped you, how they made you feel, all those sorts of
Absolutely.
things. That's what you remember. So I think that's kind of as I'm getting older, that's the thing that I'm finding to be the most valuable in my life is that, when I get Christmas cards from all these patients who I do other things too, like cancer, and when I get the cards
Mm,
from them, it is, those are things that kind of realize, yes, this is actually, the time, the dedication, the sacrifice is worth it.
absolutely. Absolutely. My goodness. Yeah. That's always when it's always amazing to me if I'm having a hard day. It seems like in those hardest days, that's when I get a text about this has changed my life. This, you don't even know I was here and now I'm there. And that's really so motivational when you're in the trenches
For
for me.
sure.
And I imagine
Yeah.
it's the same.
Yeah,
Hmm.
definitely. Like any card I've ever gone for a patient, I keep them all. And part of
Oh, love
yeah, I keep
that.
them all. I have a box full of them. Because, when I'm gone, at least my kids they'll say, their dad at least did something useful, right? They can look at
Oh,
them, right? So I
wow.
keep them, partly for me, but partly for them.
That's beautiful. That's so beautiful. Um, okay, back to just the surgery, GLP-1s and the reality of the situation there. Do you ever see people out eat surgery or GLP-1s?
For sure. I mean, again, that's why again, you're never perfect with your patient selection, but that's why we spend a lot of time assessing people.
Mhm.
Um, so I remember like, maybe 15, 20 years ago, gastric bands. I don't know if you ever heard about gastric bands. They were
Mhm.
more popular or like this
Mhm.
silicone piece of, essentially a piece of plastic you'd put on top of the top part of the stomach, and there was a port that you'd inject saline in, and it tightens it. That was one of the more popular bariatric surgeries 20 years ago. And, and it would cause restriction. By restriction, I mean when you eat food, it gets held up above the band. And as a result, you feel full faster and you can't eat as much. You'll start feeling nauseous or having kind of like reflux or other types of symptoms. So it's really effective if you eat like protein dense food. So like, red meat, just steak, chicken, whatever, pork. But um, what we found was and I'd seen this, patients sent to me for second opinions or so, is that the restrictive weight loss surgeries, they work if you eat like whole food, like you eat things with substance to them, but liquid calories, it won't do anything. Like
Hmm. Really
liquid
simple
calories,
carbs, nada.
yeah.
Mhm.
If you're drinking sodas, a couple of liters of Coke a day, it's not you're gonna gain weight. So or ice cream, things that basically turn to mush, with the gastric band, it would go right through.
Mm.
So people would have this false sense that, well, I have the band in, it's working. So if I should be, it would tell me if I should stop eating. But if you change what you eat, or if you blenderize, people would blend their food, and they would essentially not get that feeling of satiety and then gain weight. So we do see
Mm.
that. We do see patients. It's rare, but you actually see some patients who develop maladaptive eating after bariatric surgery. Some patients gain weight, which can really be shocking, right, to the patient,
Yeah.
and very devastating. And I'm saying this
Hmm.
very respectfully, but it can be very it's really, it's psychological. It's very bad for them when that happens. So you
Absolutely.
definitely
Yeah.
you can almost out eat anything,
Hmm.
if you do, if you eat drink liquid calories or really soft foods. Yeah, for sure.
I always say you can out eat any med. That's,
So
yeah, for sure.
if I can kind of read between the lines, what you're describing is, what we consider to be general best practices for anybody. You know,
Yeah,
Correct.
true.
starting to, we talk about starting to replace a lot of the liquid calories in your diet with something that, like you said, you have to chew more, right? Something that's going
Yes,
to spend more time in your mouth to even get down,
for
uh,
sure.
would be a good practice to adopt, even if you're considering some kind of surgery, or the introduction of a GLP-1. Go ahead and kind of pre-adopting that behavior is just general best practice, or
For
you would
sure.
recommend. Okay.
Yeah, like if I was gonna, tell someone how to eat their dinner, like I would eat the protein first, then I would eat the vegetable, or whatever it may be, and then if there's a little space, you can have the carb, because if you eat the protein first, that doesn't get pushed through your stomach, peristalsis through your stomach as quick, and it takes up more space. So we tell that to patients who have bariatric surgery: have the protein first,
We do the same
then
for diabetes. Hmm.
yeah, have the vegetables, and there probably is not going to be any space in your gastric sleeve after that, and then you don't even have the carb in a lot of cases. But I think if you're just let's just say you're trying to eat healthy, that's how I would eat. I would eat the protein,
Hmm.
then the vegetables, and then go from there.
Yeah. You bring up such a great point. We talk about these specific conditions, obesity, diabetes, but these are, I would imagine, because it's true in my life, and what I recommend for other people is just these are not just for these conditions. This is a good idea, like a healthy diet for somebody with diabetes, a healthy diet for somebody who has obesity. This is a healthy diet for anyone other than like celiac sprue, or any kind of very specific allergy or something. These are healthy
Oh,
behaviors and
for
healthy ways of
for
eating.
I think these are universal. I think
Hmm.
eating whole food, real food, protein, heavy diets are a good health practice. Avoiding processed foods,
Yeah.
that have no nutritional
Ultra
value,
processed. Big problem.
cause huge spikes in your blood sugar. And, I mean, we're even wondering if they may be linked to certain types of malignancies, because we're seeing a lot of
Hmm.
cancers in younger patients, a lot of colorectal cancer, and a lot of us are wondering if it's changing the content, the composition of the bacteria in your colon, which may be leading to more inflammation. And, there are lots of, like these processed foods are really a new thing. Like they're not, 60 years ago, people were not eating, processed foods like we are now. These things are mass produced, have very little nutritional value, are calorie dense, and they don't make you feel full.
Mhm.
And I think it's just a reflection of how busy everyone is in society now, that people, one, don't have time to prepare food in many cases, and two, don't have access to, nutritional or even the cost of having fresh fruits and vegetables in some ways are much more than you could probably go to McDonald's and get four Happy Meals. Is cheaper than, in some ways than making a full nutritious meal. So that's actually not good if that's what's happening. That's a
There's
societal issue.
Yeah, I think it's been so just like we were speaking earlier about how much it's been researched to keep us engaged, to keep us clicking and scrolling. The same thing with nutrition and ultra processed foods is it's how do we make this saltier, sweeter, more addictive? You buy more, you eat the whole bag, you buy another bag, all of that goes into it. And we do talk about nutritional quality. So yeah, you might could buy something for the same cost, but is it going to stay as long and be a good investment in your body bank account? So yes, absolutely. So when you see long-term success, whether it's remission from type 2 diabetes, medication reduction, stability and success in somebody's weight loss, what do these people have in common that you've noticed?
I think it's ultimately the habits they form. So there's this I think it's like the National Weight Control Registry. They
Hmm.
have this database. I think it's based out of Denver or somewhere, Colorado. And I haven't looked at it in a while, but I knew they had like the 4 or 5 things that people who've lost 30 or 40 pounds and kept it off for at least a year or 2 years, what they do. And one of the things they said is they exercise like 30 or 40 minutes, 5 or 6 days a week. They only watch 2 or 3 hours of TV a week. They always eat breakfast. They had like all these things that
Hmm.
they do that were linked to actually having long-term weight loss success. So I think ultimately it's your habits that are going to determine whether you succeed long term. And part of habits are setting up your environment for you to continue doing those things. So yeah, and I think that all ties into mindfulness. These things are all interconnected. So
They surely are, and I think people think that it's all I do this over here. We like to as humans like to segment and compartmentalize, but everything is connected. It's all intertwined. Are your shoes by your keys? By is it? Are your clothes planned out the night before? Like so many different things
yeah,
that
like
lead into the next and
and and I think
aspects.
right. So like I think like when you look at people, if you look at people who've struggled with their weight or even other aspects of their life, there's a lot of unconscious behavior that have become habits. So let's say, it's a common thing that I see when I talk to patients are, okay, I've been at the office, it's been a busy day, it's stressful to interact. People can find the work environment very stressful. That's why there was a lot of resistance to go back to the offices after the pandemic because you got to get back into that whole stressful work environment, which
Mhm.
I totally understand and get. So, your boss has been telling you to do this, or you had a coworker that was, didn't interact well with you, you had a stressful day. And so you're feeling emotionally charged and you want to kind of feel in control. So a lot of things that people do is they don't realize it's a common thing is they're driving home to go to Starbucks and they get a snack or a latte or whatever
Yeah.
it may be, and then that becomes their habit. So, the cue is the stress of the day, the behavior is
Yep.
to go to Starbucks, and then um, the result is you get that emotional that moment of control where that immediate reward or dopamine surge of having a treat or something, and you don't
Hmm.
even realize you're doing it, and you do this every day, 5 days a week, 4 weeks a month, and it starts to add up, and those become your habits. So that's where mindfulness comes in. I think the first thing is when you're trying to make changes is you need to take stock of where you're at. So, and I always
Yeah.
tell patients that like try to, slow things down and ask yourself like, so let's say, you're about to go to Starbucks, just the act of slowing things down and asking yourself, am I actually hungry? If you
Hmm.
actually made into the habit of doing that, more times than not, you're not even going to go. You're just going to turn around and just say, I'm not going to go to Starbucks. I'm just going to go home. So, and that's where the mindfulness is, being present and actually understanding why you're doing what you're doing. And when you
Right.
when you become aware and you understand why you're doing, that's when you can actually change your habits. So that's kind of one of the things that, when I was saying it's the habits are what will ultimately make you succeed. And part of habits are understanding your environment. So,
Mm-hmm.
I always tell patients to do an environmental scan of your workplace and your home. So on your desk, if you're having chips or chocolates and stuff, throw them out, or just don't, instead have nuts or have a banana or have something, pre-cut fruits or vegetables, something so that if you do need a snack, you have something healthy that's right there. You're more likely to, if it's right there, you're probably to eat it. Most people, if you actually gave them, if they didn't have to go through the process of cutting, if they had it there, they'd eat it. It's just that
Mm-hmm.
they haven't had the time. So, and that's what you talk. I think you kind of alluded to. It's like bad meal batch planning. Like Sunday night should be, the night that you actually do meal planning and you kind of prepare your lunches for 2 or 3 days or your snacks for 2 or 3 days. So these are the habits I think that if people actually become conscious and understand where they're falling short and then making those appropriate changes, that's where you'll see the success.
I love that. Okay, so in the interest of time, I've got a last question for you. And I think
Sure.
it's so important in the realm of hope because so many people feel that they're a lost cause. They're too old. This is my life now. So is it possible to regain trust in your body, in yourself after years of dieting, meds, or procedures?
Yes, I do think it is. And I think that that's where an optimistic and positive mindset plays a huge role. I think a lot of us all of us in our lives have had failures and, traumas or whatever it may be. But I think that if you spend the time to actually do the deep work to change your mindset, you can tackle things with an optimistic. And I think optimism is very important. You have to approach change with optimism. And optimism doesn't mean that, oh, I need to lose 80. Like, I will, it's not, it's just being optimistic that I can make small changes over time and I will see those results compound. I do truly believe that. I've worked with enough people in my career, thousands of people from all walks of life with different weight loss goals, different health challenges. And I've seen, people who I thought might not succeed have succeeded and people who I thought had every advantage didn't succeed. So, I think a lot of it comes down to your mindset and habits. And I don't think that, if someone's sitting there thinking, well, it's not going to work for me because of A, B, and C, I truly don't think that's the case. I think you can do it. Sometimes that means you need help. Sometimes that means you gotta, lean on your social support network, get help from your family doctor. But and as I said
Absolutely.
before, people want to help. You just have to
Yeah.
ask. They do want to help. Most people are good-hearted. They do want to help people improve their lives because when you help someone improve their lives, you improve yours too. And I and I
Absolutely.
and I think that people want to do that.
I agree. Yes. And we're going to link how they can get your workbook in our show notes, but can you point people in the right direction really quickly to
Yeah,
get more
so
information from you and more support from you?
for sure. So my book is called Shift Your Mind to Shift Your Weight. It's I tried to keep it practical, almost modular. I know people are busy, so I tried to really get to the key points so that they can use it in an accessible way. You can get it on Amazon. I think in the US you guys have Barnes and Noble. I think it's available
We
on
do.
that too.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
otherwise, you can follow my clinic Instagram at Peel Weight Loss Clinic. I put a lot of just sort of
Okay.
motivational, educational material there that I think will help anyone trying to improve their health.
And can you say that one more time?
Yeah, it's
Your Instagram?
it's at Peel. Peel's an area just outside the Greater Toronto area, so it's PEEL Weight Loss Clinic at
Got it.
Peel Weight Loss Clinic. Yeah,
Wonderful. Well, thank you so very much. We really enjoyed having you
yeah, it was great. I
on.
enjoyed the conversation. Yeah,
Love it. And I'd love to have you in the future if it makes sense for you.
for
Would
sure.
love to continue this conversation.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dr. Kundhal.
Yeah, it was nice to see you guys.
Thanks for listening to the Diabetes Podcast. And a big thanks to Dr. Pavi Kundhal for reminding us that lasting change isn't about a magic bullet. It's about the mindset and habits that make every tool more effective. Remember, treat surgery and meds as tools. Your daily habits drive long-term success. Focus on process over the scale. Collect small, sustainable wins. Reduce weight gain enablers by making your environment work for you. And plateaus are normal. Resilience and consistency carry you through. You can find Dr. Kundhal's workbook, Shift Your Mind to Shift Your Weight, on Amazon and at Barnes & Noble, and follow him on Instagram at Peel Weight Loss Clinic for practical tips. If you enjoyed this episode, please take the time to give it a like and leave a review. This really helps to promote and sustain this free podcast and to get the word out to the millions of people worldwide that are struggling with type 2 and prediabetes, letting them know that remission is possible if you take action today. And if you have additional questions or need additional support, reach out to us at support@empowerdiabetes.com. Until next time, take courage. You can do this, and we can help.